Greetings and welcome back to the No Channel. My name is Bernadette Johnson. I'm also known as Keziah or Kizzy. And today I'm coming to you with another video titled Pope Leo XIV's Black Ancestry and its Possible Sibyl Connection. Now, pardon me if I sound a little hoarse. I don't know what's been going on with my voice lately. So if I sound a bit different, that's the reason. I'm just a little hoarse. Okay, so as you all know, there was a new pope selected. This was last week on May the 8th. And of course, it was a whole lot of fanfare and commotion about it because this was the first U.S. American pope. Now, I know the media always say he's the first American pope, but technically he's the first U.S. American pope. He's the first pope from the United States of America, because actually you don't just have North America, you have South America, you have Central America. So anyone that's from any of the countries in South America, Central America, technically they're American too. So to be more specific, he's the first U.S. American pope to be selected. And it wasn't long after this pope's selection that we learned that he had black ancestry, and this was broadcasted in mainstream media. Now, why was the mainstream media why did they so readily share this? Usually things regarding maybe a prominent, white presenting figure, and they may have some black ancestry, they keep that hush hush. You may see people, on social media or alternative media, they may talk about it, but it is not talked about in the mainstream media. But for some strange reason, this Pope's black ancestry was, it was so quickly shared by mainstream media. And there could be a possible reason for this. So let's continue now. For those who may be watching, one of my videos for the first time, I talk about the Sibyls. And if you don't know what the Sibyl what Sibyl means, I'll just give you a brief little, overview on the meaning of Sibyls. Now, according to the AI, this is just an AI overview. The Sibyls were female prophets or oracles in ancient Greek and Roman mythology, known for their prophetic abilities. They were believed to be inspired by gods like Apollo and often delivered their prophecies in a frenzied and enigmatic state, requiring interpretation by priests. The number of Sibyls varied, with some accounts mentioning 10, while others referred to as many as 12. Now, you will mainly hear, Sibyls are mainly associated with pagan gods and this and that, but there are also Sibyls of the Most High. Because let's continue. Now, as far as that Merriam-Webster dictionary, okay, the first entry is Sibyl is any of several prophecies, usually accepted as 10 in number, and credited to widely separate parts of the ancient world, such as Babylonia, Egypt, Greece, and Italy. And in the second entry, Sibyl is prophetess or fortune teller. So a Sibyl in simple terms is just that, prophetess, a female prophet. And it can be a prophet, prophetess, the pagan gods or the Most High Creator. So I just wanted, and also too, if you want to read a little bit more on the Sibyls, Wikipedia gives a fairly, good breakdown of the Sibyls and the history, origin, and all of that. However, mind you, when you look up the Sibyls and you see a lot of the pictures and depictions of the Sibyls, they're going to be more of a European look. They're going to have more of a European look. The Sibyls were whitewashed. The Sibyls, the original, the Sibyls were actually ancient African prophetesses. These were black women. But of course, the powers that be whitewashed the Sibyls like they whitewashed just about everything else. So we'll be talking about the Sibyls a little more later in this presentation. So, and also too, if this is your first time watching my video, I actually have a whole playlist where I talk about the Sibyls. So if you go to my channel and go to my playlist called the Sibyls, you will see all the videos that I've done, well, the several videos I've done where I talk about the Sibyls. Okay, so let's continue. Now we're talking about this new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th. And this is one of the articles that mainstream media released about his black ancestry. Now, this is from the ABC News, and it's just a short article, so I'll just read it. So it says, Pope Leo the 14th's family tree shows black roots in New Orleans. Okay. Robert Francis Prevost, the Chicago-born man who became Pope Leo the 14th on Thursday, has black family roots in New Orleans, Louisiana, records show. ABC News has obtained several records, including U.S. Census records from the early 1900s, demonstrating that the first American Pope's family tree reflects the complex racial history of this country. Of course, this country is a melting pot. You have all races and nationalities, living together and mixed up. Okay, continuing. Both of Leo the 14th's maternal grandparents. Now, I'm stressing maternal. Those are the grandparents on his mother's side, and I'm stressing maternal for a reason. I'll repeat. Both of Leo the 14th's maternal grandparents, Joseph Martinez and Louise Bacquet, are described as black or mulatto in several census documents. And I think these are, what you would see pictured, I think these are his, maternal grandparents here. That's pictured on the first page of this article here. Now, continuing. And on their 1887 marriage license, Martinez, that's the man, the grandfather, listed his birthplace as Haiti. Keep Haiti in mind too. And birth records show that he was born in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Now, one record show that he was born in Haiti, and then another record show he was born in Dominican Republic, but that's no major thing because Haiti and Dominican, they're on the same island, which is called Hispaniola. Continuing. Chris Smothers, professional genealogist for 15 years and historian studying at Simmons University, told ABC News that these were the same territories at the time, right? And Bacquet's birth records show she was born in New Orleans. That's his maternal grandmother. Okay. Despite Martinez being born abroad, his father, the Pope's great-grandfather, was found to be from Louisiana, Smothers said, emphasizing the Pope's ancestry in the American South. It's clear that the Pope has centuries-long ties to free people of color in Louisiana, Smothers told ABC News. On the 1900 census, while his family lived in New Orleans, both Leo the 14th's maternal grandparents and his aunt, Irma and Margaret, were identified as black. However, in 1920, after the family migrated to Chicago and had the Pope's mother, Mildred, that decade's census reflect their race as white. So they went up north and I guess they passed. Like so many families fleeing the South at that time, they could have shifted their racial identity. Smothers called this a common surviving strategy at the time. Yes, a lot of white passing people, they did go up north and they passed. Okay, continuing. In that intervening period, They not only migrated from New Orleans to Chicago in the period between 1910 and 1912, but they also changed their racial identifiers, which is very common. Jari Anara, a genealogist and family historian at the Historic New Orleans Collection, told ABC News. Many families did this as a question of their livelihoods, as an economic decision. They pass for white, like I just said. Okay. And then it's the last, I think just the last little bit here. Okay. ABC News also obtained photos of those grandparents from the local genealogists working on uncovering the lineage. The Pope's brother, John Prevost, recognized the photos and confirmed to ABC News that they depict their grandparents. While John Prevost knew that his grandparents' connection to Haiti and the family's time in New Orleans, he told ABC News that their family never discussed racial matters. Creoles in New Orleans have been part of Louisiana history for almost as long as it has been a state, and have contributed enormously to the culture of Louisiana. The word Creole commonly describes mixed race people of color. To be, Creole in Louisiana, to be a free person of color in New Orleans in that time really indicates that there was at some point an enslaved person that had to fight for their freedom. Smothers said, though genealogists have yet to find direct evidence linking the Pope's ancestry to any enslaved individual. In a statement released Thursday night, New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell said the city of New Orleans is a melting pot of different religions and beliefs. We are thrilled to welcome Pope Leo XIV, who embodies morality, unity, and inclusivity. Okay. Oh, actually, there's more. Okay, now this is the last page here. Genealogists continue to dig into the Pope's records to find out more information about his ancestry. But for now, it seems that Pope Leo is not the only first American Pope, but is not only just he's not only the first American Pope, but he also represents the melting pot of backgrounds in the U.S. They were a Creole family of color. They were a Creole of color family. Creole indicating their cultural background that they are rooted in this place in Louisiana, which of course has its origins of the French and Spanish colony with a significant West African population, and of color indicating that they were a racial mix. They were a combination of all those ethnic backgrounds, Honora said. Honora also pointed to the symbolic nature of the Pope's ancestry. The story, the trajectory does not surprise me, but the fact that a descendant of that family is the Pope, really adds the element of surprise. So, it comes as, of a great interest to see that the first, U.S. American Pope selected has such a, mixed background, but as the article says, he represents America. America is what they call a melting pot. But the question to be asked is, why was he chosen? Why was this particular Pope chosen with such a, what I would say, colored background? Now, I know some people are debating, okay, well, should he considered white or black or what? But from what I can see, I don't consider him black. Honestly, I don't. I consider him white presenting man with black or African admixture. That's what I see him as. So that's just me. But the question that I just asked, why did they choose him? Let's continue on in this presentation, and maybe the question will get answered in this presentation. Continuing on. Now, if you've seen some of my previous videos, I mentioned this is the Pope before, this is Pope Leo's predecessor, Pope Francis. Back in December, it was in the news where the Pope was to open the five sacred portals starting on Christmas Eve, around Christmas Eve. And, some people talked about that. And what was the meaning for these five sacred portals? Now, those of you who watched my video know that I, went into more detail explaining that they do this every 25 years. For the Vatican, the Catholics, their jubilee is every 25 years, and the Pope opens these sacred portals, every 25 years. But it was said that, he doesn't usually, some was saying that it's strange that he's opening five portals because he doesn't usually open five portals. And then some are saying, no, it's usually five. So I'm not quite sure what that, if it's what is true and what's not. But the news, made it their business to say he was to open the five portals starting around Christmas Eve and ending sometime in early January. So he didn't open the five portals at one time. It was over a stretch of days or maybe a couple of weeks. But the emphasis was made on the five. What's up with the five? Let's continue. Okay, and also too, with this Pope Leo's predecessor, Pope Francis, what was strange is, and I had mentioned this in one of my videos where I talked about his passing. Not long after he opened these five portals, Pope Francis started, experiencing a string of mishaps. He fell a couple of times, or almost fell. And of course, he was hospitalized for almost a month with double pneumonia. And then within 4 months time, 4 months after he opened these portals, he was gone. He was dead. So there's something to that. And I explained it I talk about it in my video where I talk about Pope Francis passing. Okay, so let's continue to the next slide. So keep this 5 in mind as we go to this next slide, as we advance to the next slide. Now look at Pope Leo's name. He's Pope Leo the 14th. You add 1 plus 4 together, you get 5. There's your 5 again. Let's continue. Now, Matt Halford, he does an excellent breakdown on this new Pope and the meaning of 5. And he in the title of his video is New Pope, More 5 Magic or Coincidence. They're playing in y'all face again. And I recommend that you check this video out because he goes more into the astrological aspect of this selection of this Pope and in the meaning of 5. And those of you who know, are familiar with the zodiac, Leo is one of the zodiac signs. And guess what? Leo is the 5th sign of the zodiac. If you count from Aries and go counterclockwise, Aries the first one, Taurus the second one, Gemini the third one, Cancer the fourth one, Leo the 5th. There's your 5 again. There's something with this 5. But I'm not going to go into detail about the 5. You can check out Brother Matt Talfer's video to find out more on that. So that's not what this video will be discussing. And then also, as I said, Leo was his name. Why did he choose that name? And I said that Leo is the 5th sign of the zodiac. And what does Leo mean? Leo is Greek for lion. Keep lion in mind. Near the end of this presentation, we will revisit Leo the lion. Okay, so let's continue. Now, of course, Pope Leo was not the only prominent figure selected that has mixed ancestry. The former president Barack Obama, he was what we would call biracial. He has mixed ancestry. Kamala Harris, she's another one, mixed ancestry. And what's the thing about it, it makes you wonder, is there a reason why the powers that be are selecting these individuals with mixed ancestry to hold these prominent positions? And they each have a, all have have a ancestry in common. They all have a black or African ancestry. Now, Obama's African ancestry looks to be more Hamite, whereas Pope Leo and Kamala Harris's, their black ancestry tend to be more um of the African diaspora, possibly, Israelite ancestry. But we'll go more into that with the Israelite ancestry. But now, of course, you may say, oh, well, they're just choosing these a mixed background because they represent America. That's not to say that that's not true, that there's no truth to that. But could it also be this is their way of putting Yah's people to sleep, the Israelites to sleep? The idea that they chose someone that shares our ancestry, or at least look, even though they may not share our ancestry, they look like us, they're African, because we've been all clumped in one, African people, black people, even though we're not all the same, we've been, clumped all together. So is this their way of finding a happy medium, someone of mixed ancestry, one white people can relate to, someone black people can relate to? Is this what they're doing? We'll see. Now, you talk about, people are saying, oh, well, is Pope Leo the first black pope? Is he the first black pope? You know how a lot of our people, when they find out that someone has a little splash of black or African ancestry, they want to claim them. It all goes back to that one drop rule. But was he the first black pope? Well, actually, from history would seem to suggest that he was not. There were actually popes who were said to be black. And if you can go to this website to read more about these popes, they were, the African popes, and from how they were described, as having, a dark complexion. Okay. So let's continue here. Now, as I said about Pope Leo and his ancestor, the article says he has roots in Louisiana and Haiti. And of course, you know that the both the Louisiana and Haiti have a very rich history, very rich culture. And they were both, in slavery. They both were, well, Haiti was an island. Louisiana was a state where slaves existed. And of course, Haiti is known for the Haitian Revolution. The slaves rebelled against their slave masters, and they successfully freed themselves, over time. And this is what Haiti is known for, one of the few, if not only, successful slave rebellion, revolution where the slaves actually fought and freed themselves. And of course, Haiti and Louisiana has very close ties, because a lot of the slave masters, when the slaves rebelled, they fled Haiti and went to Louisiana, and some of them took their slaves with them. So that's one of the reasons why, Haiti and Louisiana has such ties. And also, Haiti was a French colony, and Louisiana had French ties too, owned by the French and all of that. So they were closely related. So a lot of times people who hail from Louisiana, it's no surprise that they also have roots in Haiti, just like Pope Leo. So as we talk about Pope Leo's Haitian and Louisiana ties, what does this have to do with the Sibyl? So I said, as I said in the title, as it says in the title, Pope Leo the 14th's Black ancestry and its possible Sibyl connection. Now, those who watched my video know that I did a commentary on the book titled The Sibyls, the first prophetesses of Mami Wata, and the author is Mama Zogby. And I give a good commentary on this book. And this book talks about how these ancient African prophetess were actually the first rulers of the Vatican. The seat where the Pope sits, this is where these Sibyls, these African ancient prophetesses, ruled. So the Pope, these white Romans, these Italians that you see, these that's ruling the Vatican now, these white popes, so to speak, that's ruling the Vatican and that sat in the Vatican seat for, I would say, yeah, centuries. They were not the original rulers of the Vatican, let me tell you. The original rulers of the Vatican were these ancient African prophetesses, also known as Sibyls. But they didn't stop there. They did not only overthrow these African prophetesses, they also stole her prophecies and compiled them in a canonical text called the Bible. So a lot of what we read in the Bible is actually the prophecies of these Sibyls. And then we wonder why so much of the scripture resonates with us. The Bible is Black history. The Bible is an African book. And a lot of the Bible was hijacked by the powers that be, the Western powers that be that are ruling right now. As I said, ruling right now. They hijacked the oracles, the ancient writings, the ancient texts of our ancestors who wrote these ancient texts under the inspiration of the Most High. They stole these prophecies and took them to be their own. And you have a lot of people, maybe like the super Afrocentric people, saying that the Bible is the white man's book. The Bible has been hijacked by the white man. The Bible has been tampered with by the white man. But believe me, it is not the white man's book. If you do the research, you will see that the Bible is of African origin. So I just wanted to, so I would recommend that you check out this book, The Sibyls, the prophetesses of Mami Wata, and how the Catholic Church stole a lot of the prophecies of these Sibyls. So now we're going to read some quotes from this book. So let's start with the first one I want to read. Now this is on page 7 of this book. And it says, from Mesopotamia to Libya, Mitzrayim, which is Kemet of Egypt, Ionia, Minoia, Peloponnese, which is Turkey, Mycenae, which is Greece, and later Rome, the Sibyls were the primary divine, Vatican, and absolute moral authority. So like how people look at the Pope, where you have Catholics and maybe other Christians too, but mainly the Catholics, look at the Pope as the moral authority. Well, in these ancient times, when the Sibyls were ruling the Vatican, they were looked at as the moral authority. And a lot of the great world rulers back in those times, they actually consulted these Sibyls for their advice and because they had so much wisdom. And if you study the word Sibyl, it pertains to wisdom. And I recommend that you check out my video on the Sibyls and its Hebrew connection, where I really break down the meaning of Sibyls and how it's associated with wisdom. These Sibyls were famous for their divine wisdom, and they were consulted by these world rulers for guidance on how to do this, on how to do that. And a lot of times they didn't do anything until they consulted with these Sibyls, because these women were, highly gifted and divinely inspired by the Most High, when they spoke and when they gave advice. Now, mind you, they were pagan Sibyls, and they were, Israelite or Hebrew Sibyls. You had your righteous Sibyls, you had your wicked Sibyls, and Sibyls, just mean prophetesses. So like always, like you have your false prophets and you have your true prophets, genuine prophets. So when it came to prophetesses, it was no different. You had your righteous prophetesses, and you had your wicked prophetesses. The light versus dark, good versus evil. It was just like that. And just speaking of, prophetesses and Sibyls and righteous prophetesses, this is just the righteous prophetesses or Sibyls, Israelite prophetesses that are in the Bible. Of course, you have Deborah in the book of Judges. Miriam she was a prophetess. She was the sister of Moses and Aaron, and they were prophets. And she's mentioned in the book of Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Chronicles, First Chronicles, and Micah. And then you have the prophetess Huldah. She's mentioned in Second Kings and Second Chronicles. And then Anna is mentioned in the book of Luke. And Isaiah's wife. Now, it may, may be missed by some that Isaiah's wife was also a prophetess. And like Isaiah was a prophet, his wife was a prophetess. And this is the exact verse where you can see, because she's not named, but this is the exact verse that mentions her. And then also Philip's 4 daughters were prophetesses as well. And they are mentioned in Acts chapter 21, verses 8 through 9. So I just wanted to mention that, yes, that these are just an example of, righteous prophetesses. So let's continue on reading from quotes from the book. Now this is on page, and this is lowercase Roman numeral 3. Now, considering the current status of African women around the world, one could hardly be convinced that her matriarchal presence and the enormous influence she wielded in the ancient world had far exceeded the limited physical, cultural, geographical, and political designation of which Africa and her religions are confined today. So this just showing how the power that these ancient African prophetesses wielded. But yet, she fell from power. But at one time, this was her status. And as I said earlier, the Sibyls have been whitewashed and reduced to a Greek myth. But the Sibyls were much more than a Greek myth, let me tell you. Now, continuing on. Now, this is on page 12. Now, take notice, pay a close attention to this quote here that I'm about to read. Now, Mr. Hyatt, he traveled across the mainly southern United States, interviewing hundreds of ex-enslaved African American priestesses and priests and their descendants. These would be Sibyls. The more than 1,600 women and men practitioners interviewed by Mr. Hyatt, anxious to help document and preserve their important religious culture, volunteered to contribute to this historic archival study. During the course of these interviews, nearly all of the women and an impressive number of the men declared with the strongest conviction that they were indeed true prophets, prophetesses, and doctors. These are your Sibyls. So these were ex-slaves who claimed to be descendant of prophets and prophetesses, what is also known as Sibyl. So these will be Sibyl descendants. And also too, this was mainly in the South. And where is Louisiana? Louisiana in the South. So keep all of that in mind. Louisiana, the South. Okay, let's continue on. This is the next quote. This is on page 13, continuing. A closer examination might reveal that many in the diaspora may very well have been descendants of the Sibyls, the first prophetesses of Mami, the original god or goddess, whose history has been lost, stolen, deliberately culturally disguised, obscured, and Europeanized beyond recognition in the contemporary faiths of today. So let me stop here. Now, some of you who's maybe seeing this, watching my videos for the first time, you may be confused that, okay, now who is this goddess, this Mami? Am I pushing idolatry? No, I'm not. However, this is what the writer talks about. She claims she professes to be a prophetess of Mami. Now, Mami is known by many names. She's the original goddess. Mami is known by many names. She's known by Isis, Ashtoreth, Ishtar, Diana, Sibyl, the mother goddess. Now, she, says she's a prophetess of this divine, this mother goddess and the original goddess, where me, I serve the Almighty Creator. However, I also believe that the Most High is not just a masculine deity. The Most High is also feminine. The Most High could not be a creator if he was just a masculine deity. She is also feminine. Because how can you procreate, which is the joining of the man and the woman, without the man or without the woman? You have to have both the male and the female to procreate. So what make you think you only need one, the male to create or to be a creator? You need both. So while, she says that she's a prophetess, was a prophetess of Mami Wada, the original goddess. Well, of course, I don't subscribe to the gods, the goddess, and Isis, Ashtoreth, Diana, all of that. But I don't have a problem with the Most High being referred to as feminine, because the Most High is also feminine. So I just wanted to explain that. And if you may not be familiar with, Mami, that's just another name for the goddesses that I mentioned. Excuse me, let me take a drink of water. And so, like Pope Leo, the author of this book, Mami Wada, also has Louisiana roots. And also like Pope Leo the 14th, I'm sorry, I didn't say Mami Wada, I meant to say Mama Zogby, the author of the book. Also like Pope Leo the 14th, Mama Zogby grew up in Chicago. So far as like their roots, they're a bit similar. Excuse me. And Mama Zogby claims to be a descendant of the Sibyls. So let's read just a piece of her. And also now, Mama Zogby no longer with us. She transitioned back in okay, before I do that, let's read her biography. Well, part of her biography that's found in the her book. Born from the womb of Mami Wada and the Voodoo, yes, you read it correct, the Voodoo. Actually, this is another word for voodoo. Now, at one time, I would have been, I would have dropped this book like a hot potato. But a lot of times you have to overlook the things that you may not agree with to get information that you need, information that's crucial to your own, understanding of matters. So let's start over. Born from the womb of Mami Wada and the Voodoo, Mami Zogby's spiritual lineage descends directly from both sides of her maternal and paternal great-grandmothers and fathers, who were Mami Wata and Voodoo priests captured and enslaved as hired-out masons and carvers in Louisiana. During slavery and Reconstruction, African descendants were forbidden to practice their ancestral religions. Many were persecuted and murdered. Such was the case of the family of Mama Zogby, where her great-grandfather, Prince Hunter, was killed in Natchitoches Parish in Louisiana. Folklore recounts that he refusing to convert to Christianity was chased into a barn and set ablaze. Now, there is another book written by her. This was on page 131 of the Sibyls, this book here. But there is another book written by her, and it's called Mami Wata, Africa's Ancient Goddess, Unveiled, Volume 1. Now, in this one, she talks more about her, about her own life and her family and her ancestors. And her ancestors, as she said, they were, priests, voodoo priests, and they were very highly spiritual. Like I said, spiritual, it can be, whether you're good or bad, you can still be spiritual. Now, I just don't want to just, condemn her, this and that, because I must say this. We all don't have the same, spiritual calling. We don't. And we all walk different spiritual paths. So where that may be her spiritual path, that may not be my spiritual path. Or that may be not, someone else's, spiritual path. We don't all walk the same spiritual paths. But I found her, when she talked about her experience, very interesting, because she said before she came into being a prophetess, a Mami Wata, before becoming a Mami Wata, a prophetess, before becoming, how can I say it, before converting to the Mami Wata belief, so to speak, she was tormented by spirits. And she consulted a lot of, shamans. She consulted priests, Christian pastors. None of them could help her. They called themselves freeing her from the demons that were tormenting her. None of them could help her. But it wasn't until she joined this, the voodoo way, the Mami Wata way, that she found peace and fulfillment. And this made me realize that a lot of times our ancestors, they made covenants. And if they didn't fulfill those covenants with whatever entities they made these covenants with, and also some of these covenants were not always good. But if they did not fulfill these covenants, a lot of times it fell on the descendants to fulfill these covenants, to keep these covenants. And sometimes people wonder why they are tormented, what we would say tormented by demons, but a lot of times they're being tormented by entities because it's something that their ancestors left undone. And as she said, her ancestors were of this way, the Mami Watas, voodoo priests, and all that, the followers of Mami Wata, voodoo priests. But maybe somewhere back in her family line, her ancestors, didn't keep up their end of the bargain that they made with whatever entity they made a covenant with. And it fell on her to fulfill this covenant. So I find this very interesting. And then also too, as I said earlier, Mama Zogby, she's no longer with us. She transitioned on January 7th, 22. You can see where she born. She was 66 years old when she passed away. So she really wasn't that old when she passed away. And anyway, you can find her obituary if you don't want to read the whole book, that thick book that I just showed you, the volume 1 about how she found her spiritual calling and all of that, her purpose. You can it's talked about a little in her obituary, and I'm sorry that that part cut off, but it's just HTTPS, and then you see the rest of the URL. You can type in this URL to find her obituary if you want to read a little bit more on the author of the two books that I just mentioned. So as we see, Mama Zogby's Louisiana roots, that we see Pope Leo's Louisiana roots, and they both were part of this, they was born in Chicago and spent part of their time, part of their childhood in Chicago. So, and then Mama Zogby says that she has, Sibyl ancestry, that she's a Sibyl descendant. So if she's a Sibyl descendant, she has these roots in Louisiana. She spent part of her childhood in Chicago. Who's to say that Pope Leo may have some similar ancestry? Now let's continue in, and they chose him for that reason. Knowing, see, the powers that be, they knew that the original rulers of the Vatican were the Sibyls, were these ancient African prophetesses. So did they find somebody that somewhat has Sibyl ties to take that seat as a way to kind of hold on to power, because they know they're about to lose power? That you had the Pope, the predecessor, Pope Leo the 14th's predecessor, Pope Francis, opening those 5 sacred portals, trying to hold off or stay the hand of judgment, trying to unleash something to keep them in power. And is by them selecting Pope Leo the 14th, is this their way of continuing to try and hold on to power? Does this Pope Leo the 14th have Sibyl ancestry like Mama Zogby? Because you know what? They have, as I said, the West, they took over the Vatican. They usurped the Sibyls to where she was no longer in power. But of course, as you all know, things always come full circle. So let's read another of the quotes in this book, The Sibyls. This is on page 15. Since their unauthorized acquisition, talking about the West, the Anglos, the Europeans, of her divine authority, there has been little peace in the world, because they have demonized the voice of her prophetesses and continue to enslave and oppress her prophets and people. There has been no divine prophecy. Since they usurp her authority, there has been no divine prophecy in the Vatican. They have this, appearance of being holy and divine and this and that, but they're not. They're not, because the true ruler of that seat is no longer on it. And they have demonized, her voice. They condemn a lot of the, African spiritualism as, voodoo and evil and dark magic and all of that. Not to say that some of it can be used for dark magic, but to say African spirituality in its entirety is evil and dark, no way. Because a lot of what they call themselves believing, they got it from African spiritualism, whether they own up to it or not. However, the Sibyls prophesied of Rome's fall. Of those who are currently ruling Rome now, they prophesy of a fall, and they know it. And that's why they're doing this and they're doing that to try and to stop this prophecy from being fulfilled. They are trying to delay divine judgment. Let's continue. This is on page 95 of the same book. And this part is called The Day of Doom, Final Prophecy for Rome. And this is what the Sibyl, one of the Sibyls, this was her prophecy regarding the fall of Rome. And it says, in the end, none of Rome's heroic efforts could stave off the inevitable fate of its impending destruction. In a desperate attempt to prevent the inevitable, the papal imperials searched desperately for the unfilled prophecies of the Sibyls, unfulfilled, that's what it should have said, prophecies of the Sibyls concerning Rome's final fate. Scrambling aimlessly through the Sibylline oracles, which had by now undergone a total masculinization and Christianization of God. Let me just start right here. When it says masculinization and Christianization, as I had said, the Sibyls once ruled Rome. These were women. So now you see you have a papal Rome where it's ruled by, the papacy. That's father, that's masculine, that's patriarchal. Well, at one time, Rome was matriarchal. So, I show you the pictures of even they had the black popes. Even by then, Rome had became Christianized and turned from matriarchal to patriarchal, even under the black popes. Okay, let's continue. I'll just start with this. I'll read this sentence again. Scrambling aimlessly through the Sibylline oracles, which had by now undergone a total masculinization and Christianization of God, they tripped and stumbled upon a few verses, revealing that the die had already been cast. The divine African mother, who now delighted in prophesying their destruction in her final words, had only this to say. And the next slide are her words, spoken by one of the Sibyls. Thrice 300 years have run their course of fulfillment. Rome, by the strife, her people shall perish. Rome is doomed to perish, and that indeed by the judgment of God, because it held her name in hatred, and being the enemy of righteousness, it destroyed the people who kept the truth. There shall come to thee sometime from above a heavenly stroke deserved, O haughty Rome. And thou shalt be the first to bend thy neck and be razed. This raise is to be destroyed to the ground. And thee shall fire, destructive, utterly consume. Cast down upon thy pavements, and thy wealth shall perish, and wolves and foxes dwell in thy foundations, and then shalt thou be wholly desolate. Now, doesn't this read like the scriptures as it prophesied against maybe Babylon or some other great, civilization in that time? It reads just like the scripture. And this is on page 96 in the Sibyls. This is the divine mother, which is, the Most High, whether it's a feminine or masculine, the Most High judgment regarding Rome, the fall of Rome. The Rome, that's ruled by the Western powers, the one who currently control Rome now. This is a prophecy concerning Rome. And as I had said earlier, that they choose Pope Leo. And does this Pope Leo the 14th, does he have civil ties? Being that he has roots in Louisiana and Haiti. And as you know, Haiti has a rich African culture and heritage. Does he have civil ties in this their way of trying to kind of appease the universe, so to speak? And when I say universe, don't get in a tizzy about that. When I say universe, I'm also talking about the Most High. I'm talking about the Most High. Who created the universe but the Most High? So is this their way of staying the hand of judgment or delaying Yah's judgment by choosing a pope with civil ties? And I also told you that I will come back to this Leo, lion. And what's significant about lion when it relates to Israel? What tribe was what tribe was what tribe was the lion associated with? The tribe of Judah. And according to research and what many who are of the belief that the African Americans, what the world call African Americans, we're descended from the Israelites of the Bible. Most believe, well, most of those, a lot of them believe that the African Americans are primarily of the tribe of Judah. Those who came here via the transatlantic slave trade are primarily from the tribe of Judah. Pope Leo the 14th. Why did he pick that name, Leo, lion? And it's shown that this Pope has black ancestry. Louisiana roots, Haitian roots. And is it possible that this black ancestry is of the tribe of Judah? And did the Sibyls, who ruled not just the Vatican but all over the world, but right now we're concentrated on the Vatican, we're concentrated on Rome. Were some of these Sibyls who ruled Rome, who were prophetesses and priestesses and prophets and priests, because it was men and women, women and men, were some of them of the tribe of Judah? Are things coming full circle? However, since the powers that be, they're still controlling things right now, and they want to maintain control of things right now. Is this their way of trying to appease the universe? By picking someone who somewhat has civil ties, somewhat has Israelite ties, somewhat has Judah ties. Are things coming full circles, which we always know that things always come full circle. What goes around comes around. And they think by choosing someone, cause see, they're not going to, when it comes to the powers that be, they may think that they're appeasing the universe, appeasing the Most High. They may think they're, trying to call themselves making it right, but when it comes to them, it always comes with a catch, because they never do it right. They never can get it exactly right. It always comes with a catch with them. So with this Pope having mixed ancestry, they think that are they doing this to try to appease, try to delay judgment by choosing this Pope? But let me tell you, it's not going to work. Because why? Whether he has civil ties or not, whether he has Israelite Judah ties or not, he's still under the wicked system, which is anti-Yah. It is not going to work. Just like the Sibyl prophesied under the inspiration of Divine Mother, Rome is going to fall. They are going down, and no matter what they do, it's not going to work. They're going down. It's prophesied, and they can't change it no matter how hard they try. So, at the beginning of this presentation, I asked, why was he chosen? Was that why he chosen? To try and delay and stay Yah's judgment. But it's not going to work. So that's all I have. That concludes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got something out of it. And I just ask that you please like, share, and subscribe. And also please leave a comment. I love, healthy discussion. So if you have something that you would like to share, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. Or if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask a question. So with that, I would say you all continue to be blessed. And that's all I have.